and welcome back to the Live Greater podcast. Thank you for being here to learn, be inspired, and progress to become a greater you. Welcome to the Live Greater podcast. I am so excited for my guest today, Anita Clark, because we go way back. We met in college. We had lived in the same apartment complex. And then later in life, still connected, we found out we were cousins. Well, distant cousins, but hey, it works. We're family. So it's exciting. So I am so excited to have her today to share all the goodness of how she lives greater. So welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. So go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about you.
Let's see. I'm a mother of 6. 3 of my children are out of the house already, and then I still have 3 at home. I am a psychologist. I do counseling and assessment. And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I know there's a lot more that you can share. You're being modest. You've done art. She actually, when we were in college, I was doing watercolor, just learning on my own. And Anita actually helped me to learn some techniques and get started that way just for fun. I don't know if you remember that. My first little masterpiece was a pear sitting on a table, but that was fun. Yeah. So I know you have a lot of hidden talents.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do love art. I've always loved art. And now the most I do right now is chalk festivals.
Oh,
and,
cool.
I've even gotten my kids in on that, and they're doing chalk festivals now too, but it's really fun.
How'd you get started doing that?
I have a friend who is an art teacher, and She was doing, I think it's called EMDR in Santa Barbara. And she invited me to come with her and some of her art students to work on a Mary, work of art in chalk. And so I went and helped her with that. And it was just so fun. I brought my daughter, Soraya, and we worked on that. And then we have a little local chalk festival in our town. And so we do that almost every year now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Soraya even does it. And she's done at least one in Utah, but it's pretty fun.
And she's just doing it for fun?
Yes, just for fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's great. And you mentioned being a psychologist. I know you are. And you shared, we were on a retreat together in Puerto Rico, and she shared some methods, which was awesome. So tell us a little bit, why did you get into that field? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, I've always been interested in psychology ever since I was a kid. And I think in high school, I took a psychology class at my high school, and I just loved it. And I just felt very clear that that's the path I wanted to follow. And with psychology, I like understanding people. And I feel like it helps me understand people, and I can recognize patterns of behavior. And then not just to understand, but to be able to help. Sometimes if you understand behavior, you can help people kind of work through things and just feel better and have a better quality of life.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about the method that you use.
Okay. Well, my preferred method, my preferred therapeutic modality is EMDR. That's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And some people have heard of it, others haven't. You can look it up. Prince Harry even posted on YouTube a session that he had of EMDR, and it was really beneficial to him, which is why he put it out there. But it works with how our brains are wired. And I'm sure you're familiar with REM sleep. I know we talked about this before, but that stage of sleep where your eyes move back and forth, I always thought, well, that's kind of odd that our eyes move back and forth in that sleep stage. But what research has found is that eye movement back and forth, it's called bilateral stimulation. And what it does is it makes both hemispheres of the brain more interconnected. And research has found that lowers anxiety. It helps with problem solving and creativity. So, and then without REM sleep, people become psychotic sometimes. So it's just kind of how our brains are wired to just process all the information and everything we experience throughout the day. EMDR takes that way that our brains are wired and uses it. When you're conscious, you think about something that might be troubling you. And with the bilateral stimulation, it helps you process that. And, as a practitioner, I would guide someone through that process. And I don't have to be full of wisdom and knowledge because all of the healing happens within the person. It just facilitates the person's innate ability to heal. I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing the creation of our bodies and how things work. And just, that's fascinating. How was that experience in helping people through this modality and being able to serve them that way?
Oh, it's great. I love it. I love it so much because, especially with EMDR, my experience with it, it helps people progress pretty quickly. Unless it's more complex, sometimes more complex things take longer. It's been shown to be really effective in helping people who have experienced trauma. So if it's a simple trauma, let's say like a car accident, something along that line, then it usually progresses pretty quickly where maybe initially they would be scared to get in a car again. Well, with EMDR, a few sessions, I've had success with clients with maybe after 3 sessions and they don't feel any more anxiety getting into the car. So it really helps with that. But with more complex cases, sometimes we have to take one piece at a time and process it. And what it does, it doesn't necessarily like make you forget something, like you remember things, but it just might not have the same emotional charge.
Okay.
It's been very effective. And for me, it's really, really rewarding to see people be able to move on, just enjoy and have a better quality of life. And I feel like I'm doing a good job if I don't have to see them a whole lot.
Right.
If they're done seeing me soon, great. That means I've done my part to help them move on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do people come to you ever that they don't really know what's wrong? Like they don't, it might not be a car accident or something they can pinpoint, but that they just are not feeling themselves or they're kind of feel just stuck.
Yes. Yeah, that happens sometimes. And that's another rewarding thing through conversation and the right questions, being able to help people figure out what it is, like what's the root of their problem, what's bothering them. And that's very rewarding when that happens. And one of the ways that I can help people find out is I'll just, have a conversation with them and then find out what some of their core beliefs are, because we have beliefs about ourselves and some of them are very positive, but some are not. And usually those maladaptive or negative beliefs are the ones that cause us trouble. And so in talking with someone, if we can figure out what that negative or maladaptive core belief is, then we can work from there and process why they have that belief. And so it's very rewarding.
Yeah, that would be very rewarding just to help someone, like you said, to move on, to progress in their life, not feel that anxiety or stuck or fear or whatever it is that they're dealing with. That is so cool. So how do you balance this profession with, you have 6 kids, you have 3 still at home. So how is that? How do you balance that as a mom?
Well, right now they're all school aged. So my practice is through telehealth mainly. I also do assessments, so I'll go in person to an office space to do that. I will schedule while my kids are at school. That's when I work, when they're at school.
And how was that? Like, even, I know you took school for yourself to learn this. And how was that? Because your kids were younger then.
Yes, they were younger. And so I always wanted to feel like I was prioritizing them over school. And so what I would do is I'd put them to bed early. Like they would go to bed around 8 o'clock and I would go to sleep pretty much after they were down. And then I'd wake up like maybe sometimes at 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And do my studies or write my papers because I'm an early to bed, early to rise person by nature. And so that was the way I was able to do it and still feel like I prioritized my kids and, was able to like little by little do that. I didn't have to wake up at 2 a.m. every night. That was just, crunch time when I had to really get things done. But that's how I balanced it out. And then fortunately, my husband worked and I was able to stay at home. So when my kids were young, if I needed to take a little nap, I was able to stay home and take a little nap during the day when they, you know, when they napped or whenever. So
That's
yeah,
good.
managed it.
Do you feel it's made, you studying and doing this job, serving people, do you think it's had an effect, a positive or negative effect on your kids?
I think it's had a positive effect on them because I guess in multiple ways, because I kind of modeled something for them that they respect. I modeled something, and so if and they have the mindset, well, if mom could do it, I could do it too. And so in that way, it's been good for them. And also, especially in my field of study, like I feel like I've learned things about parenting that I didn't know when I was younger. Even though I was a psych major before I ever got married, I graduated before I ever had kids. There's so much that I've learned since then, like with hands-on experience, but also in what I've studied. And I feel like that knowledge, they get to benefit from that knowledge. And so in that way, it's been good for them.
In that, have they been your guinea pigs as you were learning, or like where you practice your modalities on them and kind
Oh,
of use that?
absolutely.
Okay.
They are my guinea pigs. Yes. And I've learned along the way and I've adapted my parenting as I've learned. But you know, one of the things I've learned is how important positive parenting is. That's so much more. The reward and connection with them is so much more important and powerful than any kind of consequences for behavior. And I noticed like either my last three kids are a lot more obedient or I'm just a lot better of a parent. Like I rarely have to get after them. It's not, they're normal kids, but maybe my parenting has shifted where it's a lot more positive.
Can you give an example of that?
I just remember like my older kids when they were younger, they had to go to timeout a little bit more often and things of that nature. Whereas I don't know if my youngest has ever been put in timeout ever. But it's not really a part of the parenting. And
Uh-huh.
I say this, every parent is different, and maybe your child needs a timeout, or maybe you need a timeout. Timeout isn't necessarily punishment. It's just I need to take a break. So it's not that that's a bad thing to do. It's just I notice less of that type of parenting and more of the positive parenting.
And what would you like for the positive parenting instead? How would you guide a situation or direct it so it's positive and not you're in timeout?
Okay. So right now my kids are like a little older.
Mhm.
So
When they
an
were younger,
example
maybe.
when they were younger. Okay. Maybe just a focus on the positive behavior, like an intentional focus on, wow, I really like how you were able to tell your brother that you didn't like that. I like how you use your words. Um, or catching them doing good things like, oh, I saw that you picked that up without being asked. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That sort of thing. I'm trying to think of like a current situation, and it would be like a similar thing. Maybe there was a little conflict between siblings, and then I would kind of guide that discussion of if they're having trouble communicating well and guide that into like, well, how can you make it right and that sort of thing. But there's not real punishment involved with that. Just kind of
Mhm.
help process things in an appropriate way.
Yeah, it sounds like your experience from being a psychologist has come into play to really help maybe facilitate more and not be that judge as a parent, right? The
Yes.
facilitator.
Yeah, I like that description of it. I think that's accurate. Rather than a judge, more of a facilitator.
Yeah. It probably helps them to be able to resolve more on their own because they're learning those skills.
I think so. And I've gotten feedback even from my older kids that that's not normal. The way we handled discussion, she's like, Mom, where'd you come up with that? That was not normal because they're not used to that and having a mediator and discussing things like that. I don't know. All I know is what we experienced, but
that's great. That's nice to have that positive feedback from your older kids, right?
Yes, no, don't get me wrong. I haven't gotten great feedback all the time. At least as far as that, for sure. For sure.
You're human, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what are some ways that you feel like you live greater?
The way I understand living greater, it's kind of living to your potential a little more. And for me, part of that is learning and growing. And so I am always trying to learn on many levels. In my profession, I'm always trying to learn because there are treatment modalities that I'm not familiar with that might be more effective with the client than, let's say, EMDR, or cognitive behavioral therapy, which is another one I'm familiar with, and use. But so I'm always learning, I'm always trying to learn new modalities that would be better tools, like more tools in my pocket to help my clients. And then also on a spiritual level, I'm always learning and growing with that, through study and prayer and fasting and all of the good things that we're supposed to do. I'm always learning. And even interpersonally, I feel like I am still learning social skills. Like I am still learning how to interact better with people. One of the nice things about my profession is I get to talk to people all the time. So I get to work on these skills all the time and help people feel heard and understood. Those are just some ways I'm always trying to learn.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's what we're here in this life for, right? Is to learn and progress. And there's always something more to learn. I think the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? So there's always stuff to learn. And I love how you're learning from all your experiences and just honing in on your communication or whatever it is that it's going to help you. So what are some things so what do you like to do for fun, like outside of work and stuff? I know work is fun for you. Outside of work, what kind of things do you like to do for fun that helps you to live greater too?
Well, I like attending a book club.
Okay.
I love having these books that I will read or listen to, and then meeting with other ladies and discussing all the fun things that come out of the books. So that's really fun for me. Another thing I enjoy is hiking. I love hiking, getting out in nature, and sometimes I'll take my dog with me and it's just nice. It feels good to be out there getting exercise, but it doesn't quite feel like exercise because it's pleasant.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on exercise. And then something else I've done, I haven't done a whole lot yet, but there's two things I've kind of started more recently, but I haven't done a whole lot yet. And one is paddle boarding. I like paddle boarding out in the ocean. And then also boogie boarding. I like boogie boarding.
Awesome.
Yeah. And where we live, the water is very cold. But I have a wetsuit now, and that just kind of opened up a new world for me because it's get in the water and boogie board now. But yeah, it's fun. Those are a few things I enjoy.
That's good. I want to ask
thrifting. I can't leave off thrifting. I love thrifting.
Oh yeah, thrifting. Okay. Yeah, thrifting is fun. You can find some good stuff.
Yes.
Thinking about what you said first about the book club and stuff, and just talking to women, just the communication theme with you, and just why is communication important for you, or why do you think it's important for everyone actually?
Yeah, well, I think it is important for everyone because we are social creatures, right? Yeah. We are made to interact with one another, and everybody needs, like for our mental health, we need to have a sense of belonging. And so if we can go out and talk with other people and engage and enjoy the company of others, we develop that sense of belonging, which is so important for mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then communication is just part of that. That's how we connect with others and sometimes vulnerability is a part of that. To be able to connect with others, you need to be a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time within reason, with some wisdom and judgment in that. But yeah, it's just an important part of being a person, communicating.
Yeah. In your practice, and even you said just with socializing and how we are, we want to connect. Do you have any suggestions for people, just some basics of how to be able to connect with other people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are some basic skills that we really all benefit from. One is being a good listener.
Mm.
And when someone is telling you something, like maybe reflective listening so that they know they're being heard, but that's just a normal conversation. But then also, if there's a disagreement, we need to be able to just like remain calm and just kind of have the other person feel heard. I think many times we have that natural impulse to defend.
Mm-hmm.
When we do that, when our brain is focused on what are we going to say, we're not listening. And so if we take a minute to like really listen, and even if we don't agree with what the other person is saying, maybe reflecting back to them. So you feel this way because of this. And then if it's possible, and if you can genuinely do it, show some empathy. I understand. I think if I was in your situation, I would have thought the same thing, or I would have felt the same thing. It has to be genuine. You can't be fake about anything. You've got to be absolutely authentic. But if you can be a good listener, reflective listening, show some empathy, I think those are good skills to start with for listening. Something I always like to talk about, and I talk about with a lot of clients, is being assertive. There's different types of communication, and there's aggressive, assertive, and passive communication. And so, aggressive communication damages relationships. That's yelling, that's saying unkind things. And nobody likes that. I think maybe we've all been in a conversation with someone who's been aggressive towards us and it doesn't feel good, or maybe we've been aggressive and that doesn't feel good either. And then passive on the other end of the spectrum with that is just not being able to set boundaries for other people and letting people kind of walk all over you. And that's not good for relationships either, because people don't respect you.
Right.
And it's very depressing to be passive. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're really depressed and you look at your behavior, if you're being very passive, then that might be why you're depressed. And then right in the middle is assertive, which means you're respectful of other people's boundaries, but you also have them respect your boundaries. And that's where we want to be most of the time. There are situations where we do need to be aggressive in our communication. This is like, it will be to our benefit. Like if we're in a bad situation, we might need to be aggressive, or there might be a situation where being passive gets us out of the situation safely.
Mm-hmm.
So there are extremes where you need to be either aggressive or passive, but generally speaking, assertiveness right in the middle, that feels good. And for some of us who might be a little more passive by nature, it might take a little energy to be assertive, but it feels good when we do that.
And then that person that, hopefully is respecting that. But I loved what you said before about listening, and then the reflective communication. And I think that is really lacking in our society more and more, is just people not listening and not understanding, or not, they just want to be that assertive all the time. They don't want to see the other side, which I think is helpful. See, as you were talking, it made me think of how if you are reflecting and saying, oh, is this what you are meaning? This is what I understood from, it can help. Oh, no, that's not what I was talking about. And it can deflect the whole thing right then. Just have a better understanding with one another. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
One thing I want to interject a little bit is, and conversations aren't about winning.
Yeah.
They're not about winning. That mentality has to go out the window. Conversations are about connecting.
That's good. Yeah. The ego has to take a back seat.
Yes. Yeah.
or leave the room, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you're wanting to have that understanding and not wanting to win, like you're saying about connecting, yeah, that really can change the whole dynamics of the conversation. Just thinking about that. That's really good.
Thank you. There's a good book called Ego is the Enemy.
Okay.
And that's it. You mentioned ego. It's like, yeah, that applies to a lot of circumstances in life. And so, yeah, I would recommend that book if anyone's interested.
Ego is the Enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By Ryan Holiday.
Okay. Perfect. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close?
I'm just really grateful to have had this opportunity to be able to share some of my thoughts and with you and some of the things I've learned. And yeah, so thank you so much for having me, Shelley.
Thanks for being with me, Anita. And I know people are going to get communication benefits from listening to this today. And if they really take to heart what you've said about communication, I think that will really serve them and bless their life. Even just taking the first step of listening and just remembering that, yeah, you're not trying to win, you're trying to connect. So I love that. Thanks so much for being with me. I love always talking to Anita. Anita's such an amazing person. This is just a small bit of Anita, but thanks for being with me on the Live Greater podcast.
My pleasure, Shelley. Thank you.
What is one takeaway that you have from this episode? I would love for you to share. And thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And leave a rate and review to help the podcast reach others so that they can listen and grow as well. You can also follow on Instagram @LiveGreater. Until next time, make it a great day.